topic is cat anxiety, understanding your stress cat. So first off, some housekeeping. Remember, at the end of the presentation, we will go through questions. Disclaimer, so this information is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace the advice of your own veterinarian or doctor. So I cannot answer specific questions about your pet's medical issues or make medical recommendations without doing a consultation first. So that way I don't recommend something that might actually be harmful if your pet is on like medications or things like that. So let's start with Stanley and Callie. These were two of my kitty cats that actually have not, Callie passed away, the little tortoiseshell, about a year and 3 months ago, and Stanley, he passed away a few years ago, and they had a love-hate relationship, and they demonstrated perfectly how stress can really affect cats in a household. So Stanley was very dominant, the gray cat, and Callie was more submissive and very anxious, like anxiety prone. And so for her, one of the things that Stanley would do is he would actually, so he was more dominant. So he would block doorways, he would actually inhibit her from doing certain things. And that can be really subtle and really hard to pick up on. And you know how it manifested in Callie is she had urinary problems. So she would actually pee outside the litter tray. And it was a very frustrating condition. We had about 6 litter trays scattered all throughout the house. So if you've ever had a cat that has urinary problems or maybe a chronic health condition, listen up, because there may be something more going on with them that could be related to anxiety. So I'm Dr. Katie Woodley. I'm a holistic veterinarian and founder of The Natural Pet Doctor. I'm a Colorado native. I actually went to vet school though in New Zealand and stayed there for about 7 years after working and after I graduated school, and came back to the States, and now I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado. Been a veterinarian for about 10 years now. I'm acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine certified, and my practice revolves around all things holistic medicine. My mission is to create healthier pets and happier pet parents through holistic medicine, regardless of location. So we do phone consultations worldwide because there are not enough holistic veterinarians out there. And so if you're in an area where you don't have access to this, it's not fair that you can't access it if your pet needs it. So we take care of that. We also do house consultations in the Northern Colorado region. So what are you going to learn today? What is anxiety? What are some of the common signs of anxiety? What are holistic remedies, behavior modifications? And then we're going to do Q&A at the end. So there's a lot here to cover. This is going to be a brief overview, especially it's going to be all about cats. So what exactly is anxiety? So the definition of anxiety is the anticipation of future dangers from unknown or imagined origins that result in normal body reactions known as physiologic reactions associated with fear. So pretty much your cat appears stressed for no apparent reason. So what are some of the causes of anxiety in cats? It could be you sneeze, right? Have we ever had those cats that are really spooky? So cats are creatures of habit, and they like things staying consistent. So when things change in their environment, if they're prone to anxiety and stress, it can really stress them out. And they might not even know why they're stressed out. Sounds like us sometimes, right? So this, however, one of the things that a lot of veterinarians miss and that we can miss as pet parents is that anxiety could actually be related to a disease going on in the body. So a really common one is aging changes, so pain. So joint pain, arthritis. Cats are really stoic and don't show signs of pain. So we need to keep that in the back of our mind. There could be urinary tract infections that are resulting from a kidney problem. They could have inflammatory bowel disease, and that can make them feel really off and not feel good, and that can create anxiety. And it can be psychological. So this is actually the most common, but we have to keep in mind the disease parts of anxiety. And so a change in household. Do you have a college kid that comes and goes through the different seasons of the year, and your cat gets really stressed out when they're there or when they leave? Maybe they're really connected to them. That can cause stress and anxiety. What if you change the furniture? Yep, that can do it too. So, or you do house renovations, or they're doing street repairs. So something has changed in the environment. Also, lack of socialization. So especially if you're bringing in a new adopted cat, so this happened recently in our house, and I'll talk a little bit about that, they may not be socialized. So what if they're not used to men? That could be really stressful. What if they're not used to seeing hats? Like if you're wearing a baseball cap, or they're not used to children or other dogs or things like that. Those are sources of stress and anxiety. They might have had a traumatic experience before. So say they were in an abusive house and you adopted them and you don't know the backstory. They could have a lot of stress and anxiety from that experience. OCD. Cats are really prone to obsessive compulsive disorder. So you can see over grooming, they do random weird behaviors over and over again. So this is a psychological disorder, and cats unfortunately can be predisposed to that. And then separation anxiety can actually be the most common. This is something we're currently dealing with our cat Kiwi. So we've had them for a week today, and this cat is very social, very high energy, very intense. And I can tell when I am not with her, she gets really worked up, or if I'm not engaging with her. So that's something we're working through. So what are the common signs of anxiety you need to look for in your cats? So trembling is an obvious one. If you're noticing their eyes are really dilated, their pupils are really dilated, so that's the black part in the middle of their eye, that's a sympathetic nervous response, and that's due to stress. And so if you're noticing they're sitting there trembling, their eyes are really wide and pupils are dilated, your cat's probably stressed out. So we have to figure out why. They're hiding. So if they're constantly hiding, they're withdrawing, they're not being present, that's a sign of anxiety. This was something my cat Callie at the beginning, so that tortoiseshell, she used to hide away all the time. And she was with her brother her entire life. And we thought she was just a loner. Once Stanley passed away before her, all of a sudden she became the most social cat. So keep in mind, it can be really hard to pick up signs of anxiety. That was really hard to figure out. And I didn't figure that out until Stanley passed. So keep in mind, if you're not seeing your cat, there could be some signs of anxiety going on. I noticed with our new cat, for example, so we have two new cats, two senior cats, and I know Taz, I'll show you some pictures later, he's a bit older, he has health problems, I know he has osteoarthritis, and he tends to be more of a loner, and he tends to stay away. So we're actually using some supplements and getting him on some protocols to help with his pain. And I can tell he's social, so I'm hoping he comes out of his shell once we achieve pain control and help him feel better. So if you notice your cat becomes less active, so if they were really active before and you're noticing these changes in behavior, these can be signs of anxiety. Or trying to escape, they're trying to get away all the time, they're just freaking out, running, they're trying to get out the door. Those are signs of anxiety. Destructive or aggressive behavior. So this picture displays it perfectly. That cat's stressed. That's not a normal behavior of a normal cat. And so maybe the guy pushed the cat's buttons too much and was trying to irritate it. Well, he definitely did. So, but if you're noticing your cats are being aggressive or destructive, destroying things, that can be a sign of anxiety. Redirected aggression can be a sign of anxiety. So if you have two cats or a cat and a dog, and the cat's beating up the dog, or the one cat's beating up the other cat, that can be a sign of anxiety. One of the most common things I see with cats and anxiety is diarrhea. So loose stools. This is super common in people too. So IBS, when people get IBS, they get really stressed out. And what happens? They get diarrhea. And cats and dogs actually are the same. So a lot of diarrhea cases, what happens is we're treating their symptoms. So we're treating diarrhea with drugs, and it keeps coming back for some reason. It's so frustrating. You have to go back to the vet, and you're going back to the vet, and you're like, oh, we'll just try a different antibiotic, or we'll put them on probiotics and antibiotics. and it keeps coming back. And the reason why is we're not treating the root cause of the anxiety. So that's really important to remember, is these physical manifestations of anxiety, if we're not treating the root cause, we're always going to have the symptoms. So that goes with anything, which is why I love Chinese medicine, because we're looking at root cause. Failure to use the litter box. So I dealt with this personally with Callie. This is so common. So one of the things that will happen with cats in chronic stress is that their bladder wall will actually get inflamed. So it's a stress response, and their body's not dealing appropriately with the stress. And so what is happening is the bladder lining gets inflamed, and it looks like they have a urinary tract infection or a UTI. Go to the vet, hopefully they're checking the urine to see if there's bacteria. A lot of times they're not. So what do? They put them on antibiotics. It's not a bacterial infection though. So antibiotics can actually have cooling properties to them. So you may actually see a reduction in the inflammation just from the antibiotic alone. So you think, oh, it's working. They obviously had an infection. They didn't. And so then what happens? They continue to have problems because we didn't treat the root cause. So if you have a cat that's urinating outside the litter tray, pooping outside the litter tray, there's something else going on. We have to figure out, is the root cause stress, and why is the stress occurring if it is? Sores and lesions resulting from over-grooming. So remember, cats are prone to OCD, and one of the signs of anxiety is over-grooming. And so I noticed that with our cats, that when Kiwi gets really stressed out, she'll start like licking excessively. And so she has no sores, but if she gets super stressed out, it could continue where she actually creates sores. So if you're noticing sores and lesions resulting from your cat just grooming itself and over grooming, that can be a sign of anxiety. And so what are some of the other signs? If you're noticing loss or decrease in appetite, weight loss, so that would result from a decrease in appetite usually, excessive vocalization. They're just constantly talking, they're constantly demanding attention. That's a sign of anxiety usually. You can have really social cats that are talkative, but keep in mind, you want to make sure you're ruling out anxiety as being a cause of that. They could be really tired. They could have restlessness where they're just going all over. I posted a few videos on Facebook of Kiwi. She's definitely restless. So I know she's anxious. And the OCD-like behavior. So how do you identify that? Those are going to be your excessive repetitive behaviors. Eating, sucking, chewing on fabric, obsessive grooming, repetitive meowing and yowling. So if you're hearing your cat yowling at night, this could be anxiety, and constant pacing. So why do we need to address this? Well, why would you want to stay anxious, right? If we're anxious, it doesn't feel good. So, they're not feeling good. Of course, we want to address it. However, if there are physical conditions associated with anxiety, like I mentioned just before, we may end up just treating symptoms rather than treating the root cause. Uncontrolled anxiety and stress allows cortisol to stay elevated in the body, which creates excessive inflammation and other more serious health problems down the road. So when your sympathetic nervous system is ramped up, you're releasing cortisol. That's your stress hormone, your fight or flight. And it's a good thing. We need that. We need to have our sympathetic nervous systems. We need to have cortisol. It does good things. However, when it's ramped up over time, we can get chronic inflammation in the body, and this can lead to major problems. So helping your stressed cat. So I'd say the cat on the little kitten does not look stressed. He looks pretty happy. Rolled over on his back, he's pretty exposed and happy. The other one looks like he's just assessing the situation. So first steps, most important, never scold or negatively punish your cat. I see this all the time. And if my husband, Ryan, is listening to this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna call you out. He's really bad at this. So what we do is we try to do like a noise, like the cat's right now, the bane of our existence is the cat's jumping on the counters, right? So just making a noise like, and that's it. You have a spray bottle. So, but you don't necessarily want to yell. Like yelling is the worst thing that you can do. So you don't want to create negative associations, especially with you and your cat. So that relationship, because that can make anxiety worse. You need to rule out any health issues. So this is number one. If your cat has anxiety right now and you're watching this and you're like, you know, he's probably healthy. If you haven't been to the vet in the past year, you need to take your cat into the vet, get it checked out, and get blood work done, because they could have pain, they could have a bladder infection, they could have arthritis, they could have all sorts of things that they're hiding from you that's manifesting as these anxiety symptoms. So make sure you get some blood work done, make sure kidneys and liver are all okay, make sure the thyroid is normal. Cats are prone to hyperthyroidism, and that makes them go crazy when their thyroids are off. So once you've done that, you've ruled out any health issues, you need to determine what the fear trigger is. So kind of keep a check on when the anxiety is happening and see where it's associated and try to figure out, okay, what's happening there. So let's talk about pumpkin. So pumpkin is a great example of what can potentially happen if we're not managing stress or households change or things happen. So pumpkin is prone to actually had some issues with getting a blocked urinary, like a blocked urethra, so he couldn't pee, which is a true emergency in male cats. And so he was prone to forming crystals in his urine. He was a bit stressed out. He would get inflammation. It was a vicious cycle, never ending. And so when we put him on when we talked about a treatment plan for pumpkin, we knew we had to address the stress. So we talked about things like CBD, behavior modifications, what's going on in his environment in the house. He is on herbal medicine, and we changed his nutrition to a more biologically appropriate diet for a cat. So getting him off kibble onto a canned food. I think he's actually on a raw food diet now. And he's just on a much better diet that's going to help reduce the inflammation in his body. The Chinese herbs that he's on are helping also. And he's a changed cat. So hopefully we can keep him from having a urinary obstruction in the future. So the next steps, environment. So we've ruled out health conditions. We need to make sure, what's the environment look like? So do they have a safe zone? Do they have a place that they can go that has everything they need in it to survive? A place to hide, a high place to go to, a litter tray or two, water and food. So they can get away. It's a quiet place. They feel safe. That's super important for these stressed cats, especially if they're being bullied by another cat or a dog in the house. This is really helpful for them to be able to go there and decompress. We also need to look at what enrichment do they have. Do they have toys to play with? If they have high energy, you have to engage with them. You need to be throwing toys for them and getting that energy out in an appropriate manner, or else it's going to manifest as anxiety. You need to ensure you have enough litter trays. So if you have a cat that's really sensitive, they may not want to pee and poop in the same litter tray. If you have more than one cat, so say you have two, they might not want to pee in the litter tray the other cat peed in because of the smell. You never know. So with multiple cats in the house, you always want to have 1 plus the number of cats that you have. So say you have 2 cats, 3 litter trays. Yes, it sucks having litter trays, but it's going to help with avoiding anxiety and stress around the litter tray. It's going to save your carpet if you have carpet, so they're not peeing outside the litter tray, and it's going to help avoid potential urinary problems. Where are their feeding areas? Are they in a quiet area that they feel safe in? Are you feeding 2 cats that might hate each other right next to each other? These are things to think about when we're looking at environment. And consistency. Cats are they're creatures of habit. They need their routines to be consistent. So are you feeding them at certain times? What does your routine look like? You might be stressing your cat out by staying up to watch Netflix all night long. And your cat's like, what the heck? I thought we're supposed to sleep now. Okay, like my routine is off. I'm getting stressed out. So these are things to think about when you're looking at, how is my cat responding? What are they doing? What is their triggers? It might be an environmental thing, which is a real or can be an easy fix, not always. So behavior training. So this would be the next thing that we look at. So what does conditioning mean? So this involves identifying those fear triggers in your kitty's life and either desensitizing her to these triggers or him through repeated safe exposure or removing them from their environment. And so this would be things like So let's take, for example, our cats in our routine. We make a smoothie every morning. That's a loud noise, the blender. Cats freak out. So what we do is we allow them to be able to get away. So they know that they have their safe room that they can go to. And they're slowly every morning just sitting there. They look still freaked out by the noise, but they're not running away. So we're desensitizing them because nothing bad is happening to them. It's just a loud noise. The counter conditioning piece it's similar. So it involves training your cat to replace a negative behavior with a positive one. So while forming positive associations with the new behavior. So this would be like if your cat's anxious when they sense that you're about to leave. So this is really important if you have an attached cat and you're gonna have to go back to work after being in quarantine and working from home. There's gonna be a lot of separation anxiety that happens with dogs and cats in the coming weeks as people start to go back home. So if you know your pet is anxious, what you can do is train them to go and lie down. You can do this with cats. So get them on like their mat or their bed and reward them when they do that with a treat or their favorite toy. And what you're teaching them is that they're attaching you leaving with a new positive association with this new behavior of going to the mat. So you're leaving, it's okay, I get a treat, like it'll be okay. So those are some things to think about. How can you desensitize them if they are super anxious when you're doing certain things? And how can you create new positive associations with old things that might terrify them? So what are some of the holistic remedies? Keep in mind, not all plants and herbs are safe for pets, especially cats. Cats are sensitive. They process drugs differently. They lack certain enzymes in their liver. So we need to keep this in mind when we're using certain things. So I've listed a couple. There are so many out there. So there's not enough time to cover all of them. However, some of the main ones we're going to talk about. So Feliway Products. If you haven't heard of Feliway and you have a cat and you have an anxious cat, you need to right now buy it. So Kiwi loves the Feliway. That's the first thing that we did before we even brought them home from the shelter is we plugged in a Feliway diffuser. Essential oils. You have to be careful with these because there's a lot of really bad ones out there and cats can be sensitive, but these can be really powerful and really useful for treating anxiety and a lot of other conditions. CBD, yep, you can use it in cats, but you can also use it the wrong way, get the wrong products, use the wrong dosing, and make it worse. Supplements, there's a lot of different supplements out there. We'll touch on a few of them. And then of course, herbal medicine, which is one of my specialties and one of the things that I always reach for if we're trying to rebalance a pet that's off. So Feliway Products, they've been around for a while. And so what it is, it's a pheromone that's released that's calming. So if you see cats rubbing up on furniture and they're all calm and happy, they're actually releasing pheromones that are calming to them. So what Feliway did is they took it, they bottled it, and it comes in a diffuser option, a spray option. They also have a multi-cat option for multi-cat aggression issues and dominance issues. And then also there's a feelless scratch. So this is if your cat is destroying furniture, you can't get them to use the scratching posts, and you're just having a really hard time with that. You can use this product where you actually squeeze it onto your scratching post, and they have a set protocol that you follow, and it's going to attract your cat hopefully back to the scratching post and avoid destroying more of your furniture or curtains or whatever they've decided they'd love to scratch up. And so this product is safe. It's easy to use. It may not be enough, but a lot of these things, you can combine them together and you're going to get a better effect. So you're going to get a synergistic effect using these things all together. So keep that in mind. Sometimes especially for severe anxieties, one of these things alone is usually not enough. But when you start combining them safely, they can become a lot more effective. So your goal is to have a cat that looks like that little happy cat in his fleecy puff. So essential oils, I love essential oils. I love them for us. I love them for pets. So these are really powerful substances. So they actually embody the regenerating, oxygenating, and immune strengthening properties of plants. They're very small in molecular size, so they quickly penetrate the skin. And because they're lipid soluble, they're able to penetrate every cell of the body within 20 minutes. They're fast acting. They're very powerful antioxidants, and they have a ton of anti-anxiety properties when you use certain ones, along with numerous other properties for treating infections, skin allergies, irritated tummies. There's all sorts of things that we can use these for. Remember, they come from plants, and a lot of conventional meds actually come from plants. So these are just super concentrated forms. So you're always you want to dilute your essential oils for animals. So typically you're only going to, I'd say your dilution ratios, depending on what you're using. For a small, like a cat, I would start with 1 drop mixed in with like your fractionated coconut oil, like a tablespoon of that, and start with that. That's topically. And usually what I recommend is starting with diffusing first. So when you diffuse essential oils, you want to make sure your pets can leave the room. You don't want to trap them in the room. You want to make sure you're using brands that are safe for pets too. It needs to be a therapeutic grade. It needs to be organic. There's a lot of really bad essential oils out there that are full of fragrances, which pets are really sensitive to and can get really sick from. And so that's where we tend to see people overdosing pets, or they're using bad brands that are making their pets really sick. So start with diffusing, and that's going to be the safest route that you can do. And it's going to, so you put a couple drops in your diffuser. So lavender, chamomile, valerian essential oils are great calming essential oils. Some cats will respond well too to the actual like dried lavender, the chamomile, like tea leaves. You can put these in like little toys. So catnip sometimes too is one that will actually be really calming for cats. If you're like, makes them really obsessive and crazy, I wouldn't use catnip if your pet's like anxious. But start with some of these types of essential oils. Companies like Young Living, doTERRA are good, and a lot of people have those. And those, I've been using Young Living for years and years with my animals and around my cats, and they've done fine and they've done well with them. Animal EO is a great brand by Dr. Melissa Shelton. I love her essential oils, and they're for animals. And so you can use them safely with cats and dogs. She has great customer service and support. She has a great Facebook community page that answers all your questions. You can search your questions. I'm sure it's been answered at some point. There's lots of people in it. And you can pick and choose which ones you need depending on what your cat is displaying. So definitely check out Animal EO if you haven't yet. Hey pet parents, it's Dr. Katie. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, can you do me 2 simple favors? Number 1, share it with someone else. And number 2, subscribe to this channel by clicking down below so you can continue to get updates every time I release new videos to help your pet thrive. Also, if you're wondering how your pet can achieve optimal health and listening to our videos made you wonder if this can work for your pet, we have an amazing membership site that can really help your pet thrive naturally by being a part of our incredible community of pet parents like yourself. Maybe you're here because you're tired of not having other options to help your pet live their best life and feel amazing. Or maybe you're here because you feel alone in figuring out how to help your pet holistically. Let's partner together today and take the worry out of caring for your pet so you have many more days to share the joy and love with them. Click the link below to grab a 2-week free trial on our Healthy Paws membership. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. Until then, remember you're not alone in helping your pet thrive naturally and live each day to their fullest potential.